Hey, Servant listeners, Ultimatum, let's check it out.
I'm in a lot of pain right now. I feel very hurt. I feel very betrayed.
We had something so good at one point. I at least just want to try. If it's not there, I'll let you go.
I'm willing to work on things with you.
Okay, interesting. So we're hearing that Megan is willing to give Dana and her a try, which wasn't how things were seemingly left off between Megan and Haley. And Haley is now broken up with Pilar, right? I think. Although maybe that'll change. Who knows? But, okay. So Megan, oh, interesting. Huh. Well, that is really in contrast to the way Megan was talking, even in the limo as they were driving away from the changeover. So, people are allowed to change their minds. They often do in situations like this. So, well, it's interesting.
I could, but here's the thing though, you're off getting matching tattoos with somebody that we said we would get together. So it's like, now we have no sacredness together. Now I feel like anybody can have what I have with you. And that
Really?
Yes, absolutely, Dana. There's a level of consideration that you should have, and you crossed the line multiple times.
Yeah, and I think that Megan doesn't even know the beginning of it. So that is one way of putting it. Now, I think it's charitable. One way you could think about it in a charitable way for Dana is that they did the experiment and Dana handed herself over to the process and she had feelings for Mel, but ultimately wanted to be with Megan. So there's no harm in that. I don't think that's a betrayal, but I don't know what they agreed to. The more I watch, it seems like maybe none of them had explicit agreements going into it, but had expectations that the other person would not get together with anyone, especially when once they were matched up with their trial marriage, their trial wife, they themselves didn't want to get together with anyone, and therefore just figured, well, the other person better not get, like it. But I don't know. There could have been agreements behind the scenes.
Yeah, okay.
The accusation that Megan was having with Dana, well, that's what, wow, it really reshapes that whole thing. And I was really wrapped up in the Haley Pilar conversation in the moment, but I hadn't stopped to think, well, wait, so at the changeover and otherwise when everyone was yelling at Dana and Mel because they might have or might not have gotten together, meanwhile, Megan and Haley, according to Haley, had crossed the line many times. And when Pilar asks how many times, Haley's like, well, are you sure you want to know? All I can tell you is that we didn't count, or I didn't count. So, usually if you're saying that, that's more than 5, right? 4, where it's not easily recalled. Like you'd have to think about it. Because if it was 3, you probably wouldn't have to think that much. Anyway, so, I wonder how this conversation is going to go.
Haley and I hooked up.
What does hooked up mean?
Like, everything.
Wow. So we have, well, I mean, it's still non-specific, but I think according to their definition anyway, everyone yelling at Dana and the receipts and all this stuff. And meanwhile, Haley and, okay. So if I'm Dana, I'm going to be like, wait, what? So that whole time while I'm getting a bunch of shit from you and everyone else, you what? So that, and then the hurt of it, right? The pain of it, I didn't know that was happening. Now but Dana will say like, okay, well, I wasn't completely honest about, I didn't lie to you, but we didn't do it, but we did do it. we did stuff. So it doesn't feel great, but I guess we can both just acknowledge that we took the opportunity to see what would happen and we'll just go from there together, like maybe Dana will do that.
Are you serious?
Now, the other justification is that for a lot of people in these positions, I think it is a viable choice to wait until you can be together 24/7 to disclose that, right? Because it could be argued that Megan has been deceitful, but it could be really harmful to disclose that to your partner and then go back to your trial wife, right? So there could be some, but even if that's all true, if I were Megan, I would not get on Dana's case for any of it, right? Because it's like, well,
Wow, do you have some nerve?
and if Megan only got together with Haley towards the end and it was only once or twice, then one could make the argument that she did it only because she had found out about Dana and Mel, which wouldn't make it that much different, but would make it a little different in my eyes anyway. But from Haley's account, it sounded like it started happening pretty quickly and happened the whole time, you know?
I've never met somebody who was so similar to me, and it was just different because I don't normally date people who are like that. But I felt like there was just a really like deep connection with Haley. And to be honest, like there was also an emotional connection too.
So kudos to Megan for telling Dana. And it sounds like given what that Megan just earlier in this conversation says she wants to give it a try with Dana, that she wants to come clean, but also truly has realized she wants to be with Dana. I don't know.
And I feel like I developed feelings for Haley too. So it wasn't just sex. I'm in love with Haley.
Okay, so now let's compare and contrast the conversation with Pilar. You know, it's hard. Not everyone can take it like a champ like Pilar did, but we can compare and contrast. And I will say that in some ways, the way that Megan disclosed this was similar. But we can contrast that too. At the very least, we can say that it's on the foundation that Megan just said she wants to give it a try with Dana. So I don't know if that affects things like fundamentally, but there's also a vibe to the way Megan is disclosing it. It's more like the way, you know, it's hard to know also like the vibe of empathy and stuff because I'm not in the room, and I'm also not Dana receiving it. But for Haley, the way she disclosed it, it was from seemingly an appreciation of the weight of what she was disclosing, whereas Megan seems to just be kind of laying it out there, you know, which could also have its own compassion of just not stringing people along, you know, and just you know, she is saying, right, which is great, which Dana and Mel can't really say, right? I don't think from my memory either one of them in the edit have fully described, and it doesn't get any more fully described than the way that Haley and especially Megan have described it. So anyway, I don't know, but so I wonder what's being said here. If we just take the edit, then Megan is saying, I fell in love, we had sex many times, and we did everything, we did it, and I fell in love, we had feelings and a connection, but I want to be with you now, and I want to put that behind me. I guess that's what she's saying.
Oh my God. I can't. Like, I literally can't with you right now. How could you fucking do this to me? Have you told her that?
Yeah.
Has she told you that? You really feel like that?
I feel like
truly in your heart you feel like that?
Yeah. You know, people who claim that reality TV is always scripted across the board, every show, every moment, I feel like they should watch stuff like this because, I mean, maybe it's scripted, maybe it's manufactured. It does not look like it. It's likely real. Who knows? We can't know. But this is real life, and this is bread and butter part of Ultimatum. This is what can happen, and it did. And, you know, the tagline would be Ultimatum giver gets ultimatum receiver on tag. No one would write a tagline like this, but, you know, woman who is pressuring partner to get married, well, demands that she, or convinces, persuades, pressures is probably the best word, Megan to be on a show so that each of them can date other people, and Ultimatum giver takes advantage and has a fling, and but twist, the Ultimatum receiver falls in love and finds someone that actually appreciates her for who she really is. And then the pressurer Ultimatum giver is getting a taste of her own medicine. It's a pretty long tagline, but you know. But I think similar to last season, everyone on this show I feel I can relate to and I like and am pulling for. I mean, some of the cast members I don't have much, not like Ashley. We've barely seen anything from her. To some extent, Marita, but a little bit. We saw a little bit from Marita. I would say that we saw Kyle. Bridget, I feel like there hasn't been much to grab onto there. I'm sure there's a lot there, but just didn't get on the show. And with Brittany and AJ, there wasn't a lot to grab onto either, which is fine. But there's no villain in my mind. I hope there's no villain. I haven't thought about that. Who's the villain? I'm guessing Dana is just a guess. Often the Dana sort of villainizing has a counter apologist fan group that will go to war with each other, right? I could see Dana being that figure. I could see Megan, hard. I'm just trying to think of other potential villains. Maybe Pilar. I don't know. Maybe Mel. Maybe Ashley. Dana is my best guess, but who knows? AJ. I could see people getting triggered by AJ. A lot of it just has, so you can think about this for yourself in terms of, and I do for myself, that if you really hate someone on the show or otherwise, sometimes it's because the other person is a horrible human being and deserves all of our hate and almost universally produces hate from people around them. Or, in all likelihood, at least has something, if not wholly, to do with our own traumas that have yet to be resolved and deserve our attention. If we're particularly triggered, I will present things like this to students and ask them to quietly write who they dislike the most or who they relate to, that kind of thing. And then we go around the room and find that there's a wide variety. You know, I usually pick a vignette that will have that effect on people, you know, where one person isn't easily villainized by everybody. So particularly when people are fighting. And when watching the show, that's what happens, right? And so the undifferentiated, the unhealed will need black and white and will latch onto one person and villainize the other. And it is a bit of a black and white way of thinking. It's a bit of a childish way of thinking, you know, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker stuff. Life is not usually like that. And also it produces a need for us to defend ourselves. And so we identify with one person and we shape the reality around that person being all good and the other person being all bad, because that's kind of how we're processing what has happened to us, you know, because we're in a particular vulnerable, raw, fragile state. So one thing that you can do, that all therapists are supposed to do anyway, is to reflect on that and do some digging. Because as therapists, if we have those kind of biases, which we always do, but if we don't have a grasp of them, we don't have a grip on them, then they'll run the show and throw us off the rails and cause harm to clients. But everyone can benefit from this, not only just in watching a reality TV show, but in our own lives with our friends and with ourselves. You know, sometimes we can be too denying of ourselves. We'll be biased against ourselves. We'll see ourselves as always to blame. You know, so there's a lot of different variation of this. But if you have any interest in using these videos as some kind of personal exploration, I would encourage you to do that. We can all do that. I've been doing it myself in my off time. If I verbalize a little bit of that, I would say that I have been thinking about potentially being biased against Dana because there's a lot about Dana and to some extent Megan's presentation that is, but mainly Dana, that is not relatable to me. I abhor telling other people what to do, and she didn't do a lot of telling Mel what to do, but I don't like it when people pressure me. I don't like that at all. Maybe I have an over dislike of that, because of problems in my past. And Dana, at least in the beginning of this season, was being pretty pressury to Megan and others. And I reflected on that, So I have some issues and some complexes, some trauma, relational trauma around that. And I use it as an opportunity, my feelings about Dana, to not only just for the sake of my reaction videos to come across as balanced as possible within reason, but also just for my ongoing healing and bettering not only myself as a therapist, but I think as a human being. And the way that I reflected on that was, I've done it so many times, even with this sort of personality profile, that I don't have to do it for very long to touch upon various deep themes in my process to remind myself. It's sort of like picking up a book that you've read before and reminding yourself, oh yeah, that's right. And then you kind of can recall the whole book just from reading like a few pages. And that's what it was like, because I discovered this probably 30 years ago in my various therapies and professional explorations. So I did it with her in that way. And I'm trying to think if anyone else was getting to me a little bit. Maybe Kyle a little bit. No. Well, okay, so this is the opposite. So in that moment, I was like, I kind of feel like I was a little prickly in a tiny way against Kyle, but that didn't have to do with Kyle's presentation. It had to do with Pilar. Maybe it's because she's half Asian, Pilar, but I particularly identified with her. I don't know why that was. She seemed, and I still am actually, if I think about it. And seeing the way Haley and Pilar broke up with each other, I kind of identify with both of them now. So I think with Pilar and Kyle, I was, and I knew that pretty quickly. And it wasn't hard for me to detect because I always have a suspicion of myself when it comes to any half Asian person because I'm definitely biased, Like if there's a movie or a TV show that has a half Asian, that automatically bumps it up like 10% in terms of quality in my mind, which is stupid, but that's me. And so yeah, I'm looking at my list here of the individuals. So yeah, I think there was that. I think I could identify a little bit with AJ as well, and was. But also, I just hate it when people get. There are certain. I've learned there are certain, and I couldn't know, but there are certain markers that reality TV show audiences will latch onto as almost like a trope. And I was worried that AJ's bullet points. If you just reduced each cast member to a few bullet points, I detected rather early that AJ had a few of the bullet points that would automatically cause audiences to be extremely scrutinizing of AJ. And then when AJ did a couple things, I worried that it would get completely blown out of proportion. And I don't know. It's just a total guess, and maybe it's completely different than that. But I was protective of AJ because of that. Now, if you actually listen to my commentary, I think I would always couch it with like, but AJ might be a jerk face, and let's look at that angle. And that's all part of, because I knew right away that I noticed like I'm starting to be an apologist for AJ, and then I say, but don't go too far like against AJ. Force yourself and talk about the various angles here, because that'll give those angles life and put it into the room, just even for myself, to recognize that all these possibilities are true. And that helps to stay balanced moving forward. Anyway, I'm rambling, but felt like important to talk about that.
The amount of judgment you passed on me, no wonder you fucking hate me. You've been trying to hate me so you feel better about your fucking self. Because you did exactly what you thought I was gonna do, but you did it. I thought I was the bad guy.
Yeah. At the very least, Megan shouldn't have come after Dana. To be triggered is okay, but at some point, I'm wondering if Megan was like, I'm not going to say anything until we're together. It didn't look that way to me, right? I think Megan might be kind of all over the map. I think there might be a lot of, like, if you asked her that final night with Haley, because she basically said this, I think Megan would say, I'm done with Dana. Like, I don't ever want to see her again. Maybe we'll have a conversation to break up, but I'm with Haley. I'm in love with Haley. So you would just think that Megan would, at the very least, not lay into Dana, but would also, if that happened, because Megan was triggered, would reach out to Dana and say, I'm sorry I laid into you. Actually, some things have happened between me and Haley, but I want to talk about it when we meet up, and I definitely want to give us a try, but I'm sorry that happened, and you should just know that so that you don't feel like you're the bad guy here. I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation.
Oh my God, I'm such a fucking idiot. You're in love with somebody else. How can you be in love with somebody else? After everything we've had, you spent 3 weeks with this person. How does that compare? Oh my God, this is not happening. This is not happening.
Yeah. Dana's reaction is understandable. There's nothing pathological there. It's painful, right? But I wonder if for Dana, there's a little bit of a softened blow, given that Dana did develop some feelings for Mel. So, but I don't know.
There must be something in the water.
Okay.
And all your senses have been altered.
Okay, so Megan, so compare and contrast the breakup between Haley and Pilar to this breakup, and the way that Haley was really focused on. Now, Haley was breaking up, I think, with Pilar, whereas Megan is not. But at the very least, you just think Megan would show more feeling, more compassion, Now, maybe neither one of them got compassion from each other, and maybe Dana doesn't deserve it or something, I don't know, and Dana did get together. That is different, right? Because Pilar didn't really get together with Kyle, so maybe Megan's just like, well, you got together, so I don't know. But we see Dana go into the bathroom and call someone. I think she's going to call Mel.
Breathe. I need you to get on a flight right now and come down here.
Oh, she's going to call her mom. That makes more sense. Of course. I mean, yeah, okay.
No, I can't call somebody. I need you. Please, Mom, I can't breathe. I need you to come down here. Please, I'm gonna lose my mind. I need you. Now I have nothing to stay here for.
It's pretty cold. Yeah. I don't know what that says. I don't know. It's pretty cold. Pretty cold. Maybe she deserves it. Maybe, like I said, Megan's thinking, well, either way, whether Megan's thinking, well, we'll repair this and we'll get through this, and I want to be with Dana. But even if that wasn't the case, I don't know. It's pretty cold.
Lost my person. That's all I was here for. That's all I care about.
There must be something.
My heart is shattered.
So when Dana called Megan on the phone that one night, by that point, in all likelihood, because that was like during the third week, that Megan and Haley were having sex and whatnot. Now, maybe Haley and Megan were thinking, this is just a fling, they're having a fling, we're having a fling. So I guess maybe that's possible.
There must be something.
End of the episode. I never watch these because why? Since it always bugs me because with shows like this, what's the likelihood that people are just going to be like, okay, I'm done with the show? I mean, especially with Netflix, because if you're not watching this show, you're watching a different show on Netflix. But anyway, so I will not watch this, and I will tell you to please take care of yourself. You might want to check in with yourself because there's a lot of heavy stuff happening. I don't know if that's happening for you, but, check in with yourself and take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.